London, in the early 1600s, was already the largest city in England, and a dense, fast-growing metropolis, shaped by trade, river traffic, and the ambitions of a kingdom entering a new century. But the century ahead would test the city in ways nothing before it had. Plague would empty its streets twice. Fire would erase nearly all of it in 4 days. And out of both disasters, a new London would rise, planned and rebuilt almost from nothing. This is London in the 1600s, the century it nearly lost everything, and the century that made it the city we'd recognize today. For over 400 years, there had only ever been one way to cross the Thames on foot: London Bridge. By the 1600s, it wasn't just a crossing, it was a city unto itself, lined on both sides with shops and houses rising 4 and 5 stories above the roadway, some built so close together that the street below felt like a tunnel. Roughly 200 buildings crowded onto a span barely wide enough for 2 carts to pass. Beneath it, 19 stone piers choked the river's flow, turning the water into rapids on either side. Watermen charged double to shoot the bridge by boat, and many didn't survive the attempt. At the southern gatehouse, the heads of executed traitors were displayed on iron spikes. A grim landmark tourists actually came to see. For most Londoners, though, the bridge was simply home. Shops at street level, families living in the floors above, and a view of the busiest river in England from every window. Rising above every other building in the city stood old St. Paul's Cathedral. Not the domed structure that exists today, but a soaring Gothic cathedral, with a history stretching back over 500 years, one of the largest churches in Europe. Its nave was so vast that Londoners nicknamed it Paul's Walk, using it as a shortcut, a meeting place, even an informal marketplace where merchants struck deals under the same roof where services were held. By the 1600s, the cathedral was already showing its age. The spire had been struck by lightning and never fully rebuilt, and the stonework was crumbling in places. Nobody watching Old St. Paul's in 1600 could have known that within the century that the building wouldn't just decay, it would disappear completely. And what replaced it would change the skyline forever. In the spring of 1665, a fever began spreading through the poorer parishes of London. Buboes swelling in the neck and groin, and death often within days. It was bubonic plague, and it had come to the city before, but never with quite this speed. As the weekly death toll climbed into the thousands, anyone who could afford to leave did. The court fled to Oxford. Shops shuttered. Red crosses were painted on the doors of infected houses, with the words, "Lord have mercy upon us," beside them, sealing entire families inside with the sick. By the time the plague finally receded with the colder months, it had killed an estimated 100,000 people, roughly a quarter of London's population, in a single terrible year. The city that emerged in 1666 was smaller, quieter, and still recovering. It had no idea a second catastrophe was only months away. London's streets, packed with timber buildings and thatched roofs baked dry by a hot summer, gave the flames nowhere to stop. Fanned by strong winds, the fire raced through the narrow lanes faster than anyone could fight it. Fire breaks failed.
The Lord Mayor, woken and told of the blaze, is said to have dismissed it,
remarking that a woman might piss it out, hours before it became unstoppable. Over 4 days, the fire consumed more than 13,000 houses, over 80 parish churches, and Old St. Paul's Cathedral itself. Collapsing into the flames. Remarkably, official records list only a handful of confirmed deaths, though historians suspect the true toll, especially among the poor, was never fully counted. When the fire finally burned out, roughly 4/5 of the walled city lay in ashes. Through the plague and the fire, one structure held firm at the city's eastern edge, the Tower of London. By the 1600s, it had stood for over 500 years, a part fortress, part royal armoury, part prison for the kingdom's most dangerous enemies. Its white tower still dominated the skyline near the river, a physical reminder of royal power that predated the city crowding up against its walls. During the Great Fire, the tower's gunpowder stores became a genuine crisis. If the flames had reached them, the explosion could have leveled everything for hundreds of yards around. Soldiers worked desperately to move the powder by barge before the fire alarm arrived, but succeeding just in time. It was one of the few moments in 1666 where London's luck actually held. Cheapside, London's main market street since medieval times, had been entirely destroyed in the fire. Its shops, guild halls, and crowded stalls reduced to ash in a single night.
What happened next surprised everyone, as were already drafting plans for a new London.
Wider streets, brick and stone instead of timber,
and building codes designed to make a fire like this impossible again.
Not every ambitious plan survived contact with reality. Londoners rebuilt largely on the old street layout, too impatient and too poor to wait for a completely redesigned city.
But the new buildings rising along Cheapside were different in one crucial way.
Fire-resistant, permanent, built to last. Christopher Wren would go on to design over 50 new churches across the city, each one replacing a medieval structure the fire had taken. Old St. Paul's was gone, but in its place, Wren began work on something the medieval city had never had. A single unified dome, rising over a rebuilt London, made of brick and stone rather than wood and thatch. It would take decades to finish. It would take decades to finish. When it finally did, it wasn't just a replacement cathedral. It was a symbol that the city had survived its worst century and rebuilt itself deliberately, permanently, on its own terms. By the century's end, London hadn't just recovered from the plague and the fire. It had used both catastrophes to become something it never could have planned to be on purpose. Safer, more modern, and unmistakably the foundation of the city that still stands today.
Subscribe, and let's keep reviving the past together.
See you on the next journey.